Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. I am trying my hardest here, now redubbed by Disney, Oracle Lucasfilm. Whichever way you slice it. Legends. I'm sorry. I finally got the big C. I got the COVIDs. It took me 2 years, but I finally succumbed. Had I done this stream before, it probably would have been a little bit better. But I streamed for like an hour and a half, if not longer, on Lance's channel. Great guy. Maybe I'll leave a link in the description, but by the time this comes out, it's going to be super old. But you can find it in my playlist of collabs with Star Wars tubers and all that stuff. But anyway, so my throat, I tried drinking water, a bit dry, and I'm just kind of dying. But it's fine, because we're going to get through this. I don't have much to discuss today. I want to not apologize, but I guess just say that my mind was on other things with the Shadows of Mindor review, and it was not the best review for that book. I could have done a lot better, and maybe someday I'll just re-review it and do a much better job, but it's one of my weaker ones, I feel. But today I want to finish off the X-Wing comics, and then I have a special little review about something not exactly Expanding Universe, but something I definitely think Expanding Universe fans would enjoy. So, starting with X-Wing issues 21 to 24. This is the series peak. This is when it gets actually fantastic and stops being just alright and good. Here we have the introduction to Baron Fel. Now, next to the Skywalkers, the Fel line might be one of the most important lines in Star Wars, because you have the Skywalkers, right, and all the things that they do throughout history, and then you have Fel, who would go on to have a child called Jagged Fel, who would go on to marry Jaina Solo, which would then, down the line, 140 years, lead to the Fel Empire. So very, very important family line there. But we get introduced to him. We basically see another Pelion-type character, somebody who really believes in truth and justice, but believes that's the Imperial way of things. We also have Izar doing her things and trying to take control of Imperial Center. We also have Sate Pestage, and he's realizing that, Izar might not want him around forever, and so he's trying to prepare plans to keep him safe from being taken out, basically. But we basically get to see Baron Fel as kind of the mirror image of Rogue Squadron, if you will, because he has his own fighter unit and everything, and he cares for his men and all that. We get hints of his character, we learn that he has a wife. One of his superiors offers him some, basically, prostitutes to do stuff with, and he's like, I don't think my wife would be very happy with that. So right there you have some good character moments right there to kind of show you who he is. But it's a really good 4 issues, very action-packed. We have all of our characters. One thing I never really mentioned, because I don't want to spoil, and because, to be honest, it doesn't really matter that much. This series has a lot of deaths, like the actual X-Wing novels do, but you don't spend enough time with a lot of these characters to actually care that they're dead, and most of the time I don't remember their names. So that's one thing I don't appreciate about the series, is I never really cared. Issue 25 is probably the best issue of the entire run of the X-Wing comics. Issue 25 is the making of Baron Fel. This is basically just a big backstory issue. It's a double-length issue, too. It's like 40 pages long. And here we get to see Baron Fel as a young Corellian kid. He even meets Cornhorn's dad, Hal Horn. He, gets put into the Imperial Academy. He fights. He even sees Han for a second, because Han also was at the same academy. He flies through the ranks. He basically has a similar arc to the Rogue Squadron guys, except that he has faith in this empire. And it's just a great issue that tells us so much about Baron Fell, makes you fall in love with the character of Baron Fell. And I just, because I had seen him in the Hand of Thrawn duology, and I love his son. I'm sorry to Matt Wilkins and how he loves Zek so much from Young Jedi Knights, but no, absolutely, Jaina needed to end up with Jag because Jag is phenomenal. But you wouldn't have Jag without Baron. And Baron Fell, or Baron Sunter Fell, is just a great character, and this issue exemplifies why. Also, at the end of issue 24, I think that Sunter is captured by the rebels, and he switches sides because he's already been having doubts about the Empire, and he doesn't like that what Izard's doing, using her men as pawns and not as people, because he values his men as living beings. And so he defects to the X-Wing, side. He joins the New Republic. On the condition that they help him find his wife. Because if Izard gets a hold of her, it could be used, she can be used as blackmail and could be used to, hurt him. Then we get to issues 26 to 27. This is just kind of a side plot. I didn't really care for it. I mean, there is stuff progressing the main plot of the overarching comics, but that's the side stuff to these two issues. Is the main plot. They're trying to save not Fell's wife, but like a brother or something on Corellia. And there's some cool stuff on here. Like you get to meet Corn Horn here. He shows up because they go to Corellia. I also forgot to mention, I don't know if I really talked about her in the previous X-Wing comic video, but Plower, I don't know how to say her name, but she's this bald princess who's a part of the Rogue Squadron team, and she's a very powerful female character. And I just wanted to mention that because apparently, powerful female characters did not exist before like 2015, and she's kicking butt, she's doing stuff, she's being awesome. So I just wanted to verify, in case you didn't believe it, that they existed before Disney bought the rights. But moving on with that, we have issues 28 to 31. This is really where we get the Pestage versus Izard. Pestage knows that Izard is trying to get rid of him. And so he promises Rogue Squadron, I will concede. I will take over a few small territories and you can have Coruscant. Just get rid of Izard and save me. So that's kind of the whole thing that's becoming. And Izard, of course, wants to get rid of Pestage because, he's a traitor, he's a coward. Because Pestage was the second in command, or not second in command, but he was like the most trusted advisor to Palpatine, like next in line. So you have that going on. And of course you have Sunter still being with Rogue Squadron and all that. Sorry. The other great part about these issues is Winter and Tycho. In earlier issues, we've been seeing their relationship kind of develop, but here it kind of blossoms into a romance, which is really nice. Sorry, and then we get to issues 32 to 35. They finally launch their mission to save Pestage, but by the end of it, they do not save Pestage. The mission is a failure. Pestage is extinguished. Meanwhile, once Izar knows this truth, she also preemptively strikes against the council, I guess, of Moths or whatever, or wherever the fudge they are at Coruscant, so she could become de facto ruler of Coruscant, so he could set things up for the beginning of the X-Wing novels. And that's where the series kind of ends. Baron Sunter Fell, though, is still with Rogue Squadron by the end of this series, which is really weird. And there's no canon story showing us how he left. We just get to Hand of Thrawn, and maybe some other stories I don't remember, and he's just not with them anymore. He's with Thrawn. How did that happen? Well, we don't have an official story for that. what I'm about to talk with you is not canon to Disney or Legends, the EU. I want to stress that. This is not a part of my expanding universe reviews technically, but it is a fan fiction. However, my criteria for fan fiction is that it must be consistent and as least contradictory as possible with established canon, which I feel this is. In fact, it fills in the gaps and tells a story that we should have had. In fact, this story is basically a story that Stackpole and Zahn had talked about creating together, but it just never happened. This story, made by the notorious Hand of Thrawn 45, Hour of Judgment. I read 2 other fan fictions by this creator. I have not, I didn't do reviews for them, but they were a loose duology, and they were a conclusion to the Republic Commando novels and Coruscant Nights. And those were excellent. This book is also excellent. We have a couple things going on here. This was a lot more than I actually expected it to be, and for that I was pleasantly surprised. On the one hand, we have, of course, the story that it's kind of chronicling or advertised as, which is how did Sunterfell join Thrawn? We get that in here. We also get a lot of other things. We get Admiral Moff Makati from the Grand Admiral Makati from the Jedi Prince series. We also have Izard continuing her quest, trying, to take down the other Imperial warlords like Zinji and all that. We have Thrawn in the unknown regions, all the stuff that he's going to do with that. You also have surprising things I didn't expect to be in here, like Jarek. He also makes an appearance. So you have a whole bunch of things like that. That little stupid the Moff girl that's like 16 from the X-Wing comics, she comes back. But everything kind of ties, and we get such a great story from this mysterious author. And it's obviously not canon, but I will accept it as canon to my head, which I don't usually do head canon, but let's be honest, folks, I day by day I get a little bit more or less hopeful in ever getting continuation to the expanded universe. I just don't see it happening at this point in time. I would love to be proven wrong. I just don't think I'm going to be. So apologies about that. Anyway, but it's a really great story, and it explains all the things that we should have had explained. I don't want to claim that Hand of Thrawn knew what Zahn and Stackpole would have done. They had specific, they knew where Fell ended up, and they knew what I don't know about any interviews that Stackpole and Zahn might have had, but if they talked about that potential series at all, then that was probably a factor within the books, but it's mostly their own original work. I will say Christopher Nelson, who's another wonderful guy, fantastic YouTuber. You should sub to him. Why are you here watching me? And he says he knows who this guy is, so he's not going to tell us, but he does know who this person is. So, interesting. I don't want to say too much. I think the characterization for all the characters is really good. In fact, this is before the Thrawn trilogy, and this little fanfic adds so much. I keep having interruptions. But the point is, it is worth your time. Up next is Jedi Prince. Till next time, guys. May the Force be with you.